close your eyes for a moment and imagine waking up in ancient Sparta. Not the postcard version of white marble columns and shining bronze helmets, but the real Sparta, a place that smells of smoke, sweat, and unwashed wool. You stir awake on a mat of reeds. There's no pillow under your head, no soft linen sheets to curl into. Instead, a rough wool cloak, itchy, stiff, and heavy with dirt, barely shields your shoulders. The chill of dawn seeps into your bones, and you shiver before you even open your eyes. Before we dive further into this Spartan morning, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more slow, immersive history journeys, and tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? The Spartan awakening. When your eyes finally open, the first thing you notice isn't comfort, it's the absence of it. You're 7 years old, maybe 8, but childhood in Sparta is already over. You've been taken from your family and placed here, in the barracks, because in this city, your life doesn't belong to your parents anymore. It belongs to Sparta. The ground beneath your mat is cold, pressed earth. Your body aches from yesterday's drills. Your stomach gnaws with hunger, but you know food won't come anytime soon. Around you, other boys begin to stir, thin, bruised, already hollow-eyed. Their cloaks are just as ragged. No one speaks. Laughter is rare here. Childhood is not about play, it's about survival. Then comes the sharp voice of the Eren, an older youth in charge of your group. He doesn't whisper, he barks. His command is a slap in the air. Get up. If you hesitate, if you move too slowly, punishment is instant. A cuff across the head, a lash across the back, or public humiliation in front of the others. You scramble upright, barefoot, your feet pressed against the frosty dirt. Sandals are for the weak. The Spartan way is to toughen your skin against cold stone and thorns. Your cloak is thin by design. It doesn't protect you from the cold, it teaches you to endure it. A hunger that never ends. Your stomach growls again. You went to sleep hungry, and you will spend today the same way. The rations you receive are pitiful. A little porridge, a crust of bread, a piece of fruit if you're lucky. Never enough to satisfy. This is deliberate. Sparta believed that hunger sharpened boys into men. If you wanted more, you had to steal it. But if you were caught, you'd be beaten, not for stealing, but for being clumsy enough to get caught. And so, each pang of hunger isn't just discomfort, it's a lesson. To be a Spartan is to be cunning, desperate, always on edge. Even now, you know you might have to sneak food later. A scrap of meat, a handful of figs, anything to fill the emptiness clawing at your insides. Hunger is as much a teacher here as the older boys. The barracks. You step outside, into the grey morning. The barracks stretch like prisons of wood and stone. This isn't a home, it's a training ground designed to strip away weakness. The air is sharp, dry, unwelcoming. The older boys stand watch, their eyes scanning you like predators. They don't smile, they don't comfort. Their job is to harden you, to carve away everything soft. You look around. Other children your age stand in line, cloaks wrapped tightly around their thin bodies. Silence hangs heavy. In Athens, boys might be studying poetry, learning music, or preparing for games in the sunshine. Here in Sparta, your education is simple. Obedience, endurance, discipline. No art, no theater, no philosophy. Just drills, hunger, pain, and silence. A city of soldiers beyond the barracks lies the city itself, and even there, comfort doesn't exist. Sparta is not Athens. There are no bustling markets full of traders, no theaters full of actors, no philosophers debating beneath white marble columns. Sparta is plain, almost austere. No wealth is flaunted. Every building feels like it has a purpose, military, functional, stripped of beauty. The people move with purpose. Men march. Women watch with stern eyes. Everything here whispers the same truth. Sparta is not a city of individuals, it is a machine built for war. And you, barely 7 years old, are one of its cogs. Your parents fare well. Do you miss your parents? Of course you do. But Sparta has already taught you that longing is weakness. When you were taken from home, your mother didn't cry. Spartan mothers weren't allowed tears. They were taught to harden themselves, to love their children by surrendering them to the state. From this moment forward, you belong not to your family but to Sparta. If you die, it is not your parents who will claim you. It is the city. A system designed to break you. Every inch of your life is shaped by this cruel design. It isn't here to keep you alive. It's here to burn away everything soft until only iron remains. Some boys won't make it. The weaker ones will be weeded out by hunger, cold, or punishment. But Sparta doesn't mourn them. In this city, weakness isn't a tragedy, it's an inconvenience. This is the first lesson you learn. Strength is not given, it is forced. And most children, even Spartan children, cannot endure it. The illusion of glory in modern times, we think of Spartans as invincible warriors, bronze-clad, fearless, destined for glory. But here, in the cold dawn of a Spartan barracks, you see the truth. Spartans weren't gods. They weren't born with strength. They were made through suffering, through hunger, through punishment, so relentless that most of us today would break within hours. If you think you could survive a day in Sparta, remember, this is only the morning. The drills, the beatings, the endless tests of obedience, they still lie ahead. Your day has only just begun. The sun has barely lifted over the mountains, and already the barracks stir with movement. There is no gentle start to the day here, no morning meal to ease your hunger, no warm fire to soften the chill that lingers in your bones. Instead, the moment the Iran gives the command, you are marched to the training grounds. The ground is rough beneath your bare feet, the stones biting into your skin. Every step is a test. Spartans believed that sandals made men weak, so from childhood you learn to toughen your soles against frost, thorns, and jagged earth. By the time you are grown, your feet will be scarred, hardened, calloused to stone. For now, every step is pain. The agōgē begins. This is the agōgē, the Spartan training system that defined your life from the age of 7 until manhood. The word itself meant leading or guidance. But here it means something harsher, the shaping of boys into soldiers. The drills begin with running. You run barefoot over dirt, over rocks, over fields littered with thorns. Your lungs burn, your throat scratches, your legs ache, but you dare not stop. If you slow down, if you falter, an older boy will strike you. The whip is not for decoration, it is for discipline. You run in silence. No one cheers you on. No one comforts you when you stumble. The sound is only of feet striking dirt, breaths heaving, and the occasional snap of leather against skin. When the run ends, it is not over. Now you wrestle. The wrestling pits in the dusty training yard. Boys are paired against each other, forced to grapple and throw. There are no soft mats, no referees, just hard ground and older boys watching with sharp eyes. The goal is not simply to win, but to endure. Your opponent lunges, grabs, twists. You fall hard, the breath knocked from your chest, dust filling your nose. If you cry out, if you hesitate, you are punished. The Iran shouts, ordering you back on your feet. Your opponent grabs you again. Again you fall. The cycle continues until your body aches and your arms tremble. This is not play. This is war in miniature. Every fall teaches you how to rise. Every strike against the ground teaches you how to endure the lash of silence. But perhaps the hardest lesson of the agōgē is silence. Spartans prized discipline above all else, and discipline meant controlling not just your body, but your tongue. Boys were beaten for speaking out of turn. They were punished for crying out in pain. Even laughter was rare, a luxury reserved for men who had already proven themselves. Imagine being whipped across the back and forced to remain silent. No scream, no sob, no plea for mercy. Pain must be swallowed. A Spartan boy's voice was meant to carry only words of obedience or silence. This practice was so brutal that in some cases boys died under the lash, still silent, still obeying the command to endure. to a Spartan, that death was not a failure, but an honor. The art of stealing your hunger follows you into the yard. The porridge you ate earlier, thin, watery, barely more than grain floating in liquid, has long since vanished from your belly. The Aran knows this. The instructors know this. Hunger is part of the training. But there is a lesson hidden here. If you want more food, you must learn to steal it. You sneak figs from the storerooms. You snatch cheese from the kitchens. You stalk small animals in the wild. If you succeed, you survive. If you fail, you are beaten mercilessly. The story is told of one boy who stole a fox cub and hid it under his cloak. When instructors approached, he remained silent as the animal clawed and bit him, tearing his flesh apart. He did not flinch, did not cry, did not reveal his theft. He died, but with honor, for he had kept silence. That is the Spartan way. Endurance above all. Everything in the agōgē is designed not to make you strong in the way we imagine strength today. It is not about muscle. It is about endurance. You endure hunger. You endure cold. You endure beatings. You endure silence. The Spartan system does not coddle. It carves. At night you return to the barracks, your body aching from drills, your stomach hollow once again. There is no bed waiting, only the same reed mat, the same thin cloak. You fall asleep beside the same boys you fought that day, rivals and brothers both, knowing tomorrow will bring the same suffering. The philosophy of hardship. Why did Sparta do this? Why such cruelty toward children? The answer lies in the Spartan belief that war was life and peace was only the space between battles. Every boy was molded to be a soldier because the city itself could not survive otherwise. Surrounded by enemies, vastly outnumbered by enslaved helots, Sparta's only defense was to create men who knew no fear, who had been raised in hardship so relentless that battle itself felt like relief. The agōgē was not just training, it was transformation, the cost of obedience. But obedience came at a cost. Individuality was stripped away. Your desires, your fears, your dreams, all of it was burned out in service of the state. Even your family ties were weakened. You might see your parents rarely, and even then your loyalty was not to them but to Sparta. If you think you could survive such training, remember, this was only boyhood. Manhood would demand even more. By the time you reach adulthood in Sparta, you will have endured a lifetime of cold, hunger, silence and pain. And if you cannot endure, Sparta simply lets you vanish, unremembered. Closing reflection. The agōgē is not a school, it is not a camp, it is not even just training. It is a crucible, one designed to break most who enter and harden the rest into soldiers that the world would one day both fear and admire. And here you are, 7 years old, barefoot, hungry, shivering under a thin cloak, staring at the dusty yard where tomorrow you will fight again. Survival is not guaranteed. Endurance is the only path forward. The sun climbs higher, but your stomach still twists with hunger. In most places, childhood softens as you grow, games, stories and lessons that ease you into adulthood. But here in Sparta, the older you get, the harder life becomes. Every year in the agōgē carves you thinner, leaner, harder. You are not raised to enjoy youth. You are raised to survive it. At 12, your life shifts. You are no longer a small boy cowering under the bark of the iron. You are expected to begin behaving like a soldier in training. That means fewer comforts, more discipline, and punishments that border on cruelty. And at the heart of it all, food, or rather, the lack of it. The infamous Spartan diet. By now you've heard of the melos somos, or black broth. It is Sparta's most infamous dish, whispered about across Greece with a mixture of awe and disgust. What is it? A dark stew of pork blood, vinegar, and salt, simmered until thick. To Spartans, it is strength in liquid form. To everyone else, it is barely edible. The legend goes that one visiting non-Spartan tasted the broth, grimaced and said, "Now I understand why Spartans do not fear death." For you there is no choice. This is dinner, and you will gulp it down quickly, ignoring the iron taste of blood that coats your tongue. Bread is rare, meat rarer still. Black broth is your staple. Other meals are no better. Thin porridge in the morning, coarse barley bread, a few figs or olives. Everything simple, everything austere, and always less than what you need. Hunger is a constant companion. You chew slowly to trick yourself into feeling full. Sometimes you steal scraps, cheese, fruit, even raw vegetables. Sometimes you succeed, and for a moment you taste joy. Other times you are caught. And when you are caught, the punishment is not gentle. The lash of hunger. One of the most notorious parts of the agōgē is the expectation that you will steal, and the guarantee that if you fail you will be whipped. Imagine standing before your instructors, the stolen food ripped from your hands. You are forced to kneel. The whip cracks. Your back burns with each strike. The others watch in silence because they know it could be them next. But you are not beaten for stealing. You are beaten for getting caught. That is the lesson. Not morality, not honesty, just cunning. Sparta does not care if you lie, cheat, or steal. It cares only that you do it well. Over time the pain becomes familiar. Your back becomes a map of scars, and yet you do not cry out. You know that to make a sound is worse than the lash itself. Barefoot, cloaked, and cold. At 12, one of the last scraps of comfort is taken from you. Your single wool cloak, already ragged, is now the only garment you are allowed year-round. Winter, summer, rain or frost, you wear the same thing. No shoes, no change of clothing, no warm bedding. At night you are expected to stuff reeds into your mat yourself. You pluck them from the riverbanks, hard and sharp, weaving them into bedding. There is no blanket. If you want warmth, you huddle with your cloak, or with other boys, or you simply shiver until sleep comes. This too is training. To live without comfort, to endure cold and heat, to rely only on your own body. Your skin grows tougher, your frame leaner, your spirit harder. But with each passing year, you feel the weight of exhaustion. The whip as teacher. Perhaps the darkest part of Spartan adolescence is the ritual whipping contests. In public, before crowds, boys are whipped at the altar of Artemis or Thea. The purpose? To test endurance. You stand shirtless, arms stretched, as the lash strikes your skin again and again. The crowd watches. If you flinch, if you cry, you are shamed. The bravest endure until they collapse, some even until death. And when a boy dies under the lash, his name is spoken with pride, not sorrow. For you the memory of that altar is burned into your mind. The sound of the whip, the cheer of the crowd, the taste of blood in your mouth as you bite your tongue to stay silent. This is not punishment, it is ritual. Pain itself is worship. The brotherhood of boys, yet even in this harshness, something grows among you. Brotherhood. You share hunger, you share pain, you share punishment. Rivalries are fierce, but bonds are stronger still. The boy who fought you in the wrestling pit might be the one who shares stolen bread with you later. Together you whisper about home, though rarely. Together you dream of manhood, of carrying shield and spear. Together you learn that in Sparta, you are never truly an individual. You are always part of the group, the unit, the phalanx to come. Alone, you are nothing. Together, you are Sparta. Psychological warfare. It is not only your body that the agōgē shapes, it is your mind. From a young age, you are taught that fear is weakness, to feel it is natural, but to show it is unacceptable. You are taught to walk with pride, even when your feet bleed, to smile at pain, even when your body trembles, to stand tall in silence, even when your stomach is empty and your back burns with lashes. Every lesson drives deeper, the idea that you do not belong to yourself, you belong to the state. To falter is not only to fail yourself, it is to fail Sparta. The pressure is relentless. At night, as you lie awake on your bed of reeds, you wonder if you can survive another day, and yet, somehow, you do. The Spartan ideal by adolescence, you have become something unrecognizable, not a child, not quite a man, but something carved out of hardship. Your muscles are lean but wiry, trained by endless running, fighting and drills. Your stomach is hollow, but your willpower sharper for it. Your back is scarred, but your voice is steady. You have learned to eat without complaint, to walk without shoes, to fight without mercy, to suffer without sound. You have become what Sparta wanted you to be, a tool of endurance. But make no mistake, this is not freedom, this is not happiness, this is not life as most of us would know it. This is survival in its rawest, most brutal form. A modern reflection. Think of it now, lying in your own warm bed, your stomach full, your feet soft in socks or slippers. Think of the comfort of blankets, of heated homes, of food that tastes good. Now strip all of that away. Remove your shoes, take away your meals, harden your bed to reeds, whip your back, and tell yourself not to make a sound. Would you last a day in Spartan adolescence? For most of us, the answer is simple, no. And remember, this is not the end. This is just the preparation. The next stage is manhood, and manhood in Sparta is nothing short of war. The years of hunger, whippings, and silence have carved you into something else. You are no longer a boy sleeping on reeds or sneaking stolen figs. You are now considered an adult Spartan, though adulthood here means only one thing, the life of a soldier. At 20 years old, you are taken into the ranks of the Spartan army, not as an independent man, but as part of a machine. You are assigned to a sicilian, a military mess hall, where you will eat and live alongside other men. From now on, they are your brothers, your family, your world, and the first lesson you learn is that manhood in Sparta offers no rest. The mess halls. The sicilian is not a place of comfort, it is a place of discipline. Each night you gather with about 15 men, sharing the same coarse meals you endured as a boy: barley, bread, cheese, olives, figs, and of course black broth. The meal is not simply nourishment, it is inspection. You are watched constantly. Do you eat too greedily, too slowly? Do you speak out of turn? Every gesture is judged. To even join a mess hall, you must be accepted unanimously. If one man objects, you are rejected. Without a sicilian, you are nothing, not even a citizen. Acceptance is everything, but it is fragile. Displease your messmates, and you risk disgrace. The Spartan ideal. By this point you have grown into the shape that Sparta demanded: lean, hardened, disciplined. You move with precision, you speak sparingly. You are expected to embody and rear courage, endurance, and obedience. But do not imagine yourself free. In Sparta, adulthood does not grant liberty. It binds you even tighter to the state. You may marry, but you will still sleep in the barracks until the age of 30. Your wife sees you rarely, in secret visits stolen during the night. Your life is not your own. The agōgē has prepared you for this. The individual has been erased. What remains is a soldier of the phalanx. The phalanx war is the reason for all of this. And when you march to battle for the first time, you understand the logic of your upbringing. You take your place in the phalanx, a wall of bronze and wood, shield pressed against shield, spear angled forward. Alone, you are nothing. Together you are an unstoppable force. The hoplon shield you carry is heavy, almost a meter wide, bronze-faced and concave. It weighs as much as a child. Your spear is long, your armor restrictive, but none of it is meant for individual combat. Your shield protects not you, but the man beside you. His shield protects you. If one falters, the line collapses. Now you understand why you were whipped into silence, why you were starved, why you were made to sleep without shoes. Because in battle, hesitation kills not just you, but the brother next to you. Discipline is survival. The cost of cowardice. There is no greater shame in Sparta than cowardice. A man who drops his shield and flees is marked forever. He is shunned from meals, mocked by children, despised by women. His family carries his disgrace. So when the enemy approaches and the dust rises, when the arrows whistle through the air and clash against bronze, you grip your shield tighter. You plant your bare feet in the dirt. You endure. The phalanx advances as one. Spears thrust forward, shields slam in rhythm. The enemy breaks before you, not because you are the strongest or fastest, but because you never falter. That is the Spartan way. The endless drill yet battle is rare. Most days are drills, marches, inspections. You train endlessly, running, wrestling, sparring. The whip still finds your back if you falter. Even in adulthood, punishment never ends. And always hunger follows. Meals remain sparse, deliberately meager. Comfort is weakness. Sparta feeds you just enough to fight, never enough to rest. You might think adulthood would ease the suffering. In truth, it only sharpens it. The life of war to live as a Spartan man is to live in a state of permanent readiness. Festivals are few, leisure rarer still. You are permitted music and dance, but only when they serve the state. War chants, marching songs, rhythms that keep the phalanx moving as one. You do not travel. You do not trade. You do not farm. That is left to the helots, the enslaved majority who till the fields under the watch of Spartan overseers. Your only task is war, and if you fall in battle, only then do you earn true honor. A Spartan man's gravestone is carved only if he dies in war, otherwise his life passes unmarked. Closing reflection. So here you stand, no longer a boy of the agōgē but a man of the phalanx. Your body is scarred, your belly hollow, your will hardened into iron. You fight not for yourself, not even for your family, but for the line of shields beside you and the city that demands everything. Would you survive a day in this life? Perhaps, but could you survive a lifetime of it? For most of us the answer is no, for in Sparta manhood is not freedom, it is war without end. When you think of Sparta, you probably imagine men, bronze shields, crimson cloaks and spears stabbing forward in unison. But if you woke up here as a woman, you'd quickly learn that survival is no easier. In fact, it might be harder in ways that don't involve whips and spears, but expectations just as crushing. Spartan women were unlike most women in the ancient world. They did not live hidden in the shadows, cloistered in separate quarters as in Athens. They walked openly, managed estates, and even spoke freely in public. To outsiders, this was shocking. To Spartans, it was simply necessary. With the men away at war, nearly all their lives, the city had to rely on its women to hold society together. But freedom in Sparta was never free. It came with demands. Raised for strength from childhood, girls were expected to train just like boys, though not in barracks. They exercised in running, wrestling, and discus throwing. They raced one another, lifted weights, and even sparred. Why? Because Spartan women were expected to produce strong children. A weak mother, they believed, bore weak sons. So you as a Spartan girl would be out in the fields, running barefoot, skin bronzed by the sun, hair tied back, pushing your body to its limits. While Athenian girls learned to weave and play the lyre, you were sweating, muscles straining, learning that even your body was not your own. It belonged to the state, because the state wanted warriors born from you. Marriage and motherhood. By the time you reached your mid-teens, you were likely married, often to a man who still lived in the barracks. Marriages were brief encounters in the night, sometimes strange rituals where a bride's hair was cut short and she was dressed like a boy before her husband came secretly to her chamber. It was not about romance. It was about producing heirs, and once you bore children, the pressure only grew. If you had sons, you were praised, daughters, less so. Every Spartan mother lived with the unspoken knowledge that her son would be taken from her at age 7, flung into the agōgē, and possibly never return from war. There is a story of a Spartan mother who handed her son his shield before battle, saying only "return with it" or "on it." That was love, in Sparta's language, fierce, unyielding, and fatal. The landowners of Sparta, Spartan women, held a rare kind of power in the ancient world. They owned land. With their husbands and sons away at war, they managed estates, ran households, and made decisions about wealth and farming. By some accounts, Spartan women controlled nearly 40% of the land, but with power came scrutiny. They were envied and mocked by outsiders. One Athenian remarked that Spartan women rule the men. To Spartans, this was both an insult and a badge of honor. They were strong because they had to be. Weak women could not keep Sparta alive. Sharp tongues and fierce wills. If Spartan men were feared for their spears, Spartan women were feared for their words. They were famous for their sharp, biting wit. A Spartan woman was asked why only women seemed to rule in her city. She replied, "Because only we give birth to men." This was not arrogance. It was survival. Spartan women were expected to be as hard as the men they raised. To weep too openly, to complain, to resist. That was shameful. You were supposed to stand tall, even as your sons marched away to war. Imagine living in a world where strength was demanded of you at all times, not just in body, but in spirit. That was Sparta for women. The helot shadow, yet behind all this supposed equality loomed another truth. The helots, the enslaved population of Sparta, did the actual farming, cooking and labor. Women managed estates, yes, but on the backs of helot toil. The Spartan system, whether for men or women, depended entirely on a population kept in fear, beaten, and sometimes massacred to prevent uprising. So while a Spartan woman might stand proud in public, her power was always built on a fragile and violent foundation. The final reckoning. So, would you survive a day in Sparta? If you were a boy, you'd face hunger, whips, and endless drills, your childhood ripped away in service of the phalanx. If you were a man, you'd live as a soldier without end, eating in mess halls, drilling daily, and marching into wars that gave you honor only in death. If you were a woman, you'd be strong, outspoken, land-owning, and still trapped in a system that demanded you sacrifice sons and hide your grief. Sparta was not freedom, it was endurance turned into a city. Tonight, as you lie in your soft bed, full belly, wrapped in blankets, ask yourself, could you survive a day in Sparta? A morning on reeds, a meal of blood broth, a childhood of lashes, an adulthood of war, a motherhood of sacrifice. For most of us, the answer is no. Sparta endures in our imagination as strength, but to live it was to surrender everything, comfort, freedom, even love, until only the state remained. So no. You would not survive a day in ancient Sparta, and perhaps that is why its legend still chills us more than it inspires.